Hello everyone, and before I start the tutorial, just a small announcement. The Black Friday sale is now active on my website, which is rohandalvi.net. 35% off on all Houdini training videos. The code is Friday. It'll be there from 25th of November to 7th December. So if anyone is interested in any of my commercial Houdini trainings, please do visit. Your business will be most appreciated. Okay, so let's get started with the tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to do a little bit of shader building on this drone model that I purchased from somewhere. So the reason for making this tutorial was because this is a fairly complex model and unwrapping this is a nightmare. And even trying to use like the auto UV, and it takes like a long time to unwrap it, and then it's like a whole bunch of like really tiny blocks, so painting anything on it would be just like impossible. So I was trying to figure out a way that you could texture this that could also work if you are going to animate it. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'll sort of just run through this my basic SOP setup over here, which isn't anything complicated. Like, the one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to unwrap, like, if you look at it, it doesn't really have UVs, like it has some objects have UVs, but the rest of it is just blank. And I don't want to unwrap it. So the only thing I wanted to unwrap were these cables. So what I did was I kind of separated out the cables. And then what you can do is create groups, okay, of the edges. So I just created like the circle and like one line for every one of the cables, and then take a UV flatten, and you can just like flatten this. So if you look at it, it'll look like that. And then you just want to make it into, you want to make them straight. So all you have to do is, like, firstly come in here and you want to pick up the seams that you had made. So pick up seams and you'll get this. And then in the rectify group, just type in star. And what that will do is it'll just make all of them, like straight. And then what I did was, once this is done, I gave it like a UV layout, and then used a UV edit to just, like scale up all of these and overlap them, because they just all going to have the same texture. So I just sort of scale them up, so you can get like a nice repeating pattern on it. Okay, and then so that I can like take care of the material assignment, I gave this side like the just the basic drone a name which is called body, and then over here I gave it a name called cables. And lastly, I got the front pieces, which are like the lenses over here, and I gave them a name called lens. So if you look at the name attribute, you'll get like three things. So you have the cables, you have the basic body, and then you have the lens. Okay, now what I thought should work is I want to mask out certain parts, so I can specify certain areas to be metallic and certain areas to not be metallic. So firstly, I gave it some normals because it doesn't have normals. So I'm just going to turn off the name attribute. And then this is what I'm doing. I selected these, and then instead of turning these into like groups or like giving it a name, come to take an attribute and just float, and I just gave it an attribute called metal and gave it a value of 1. So what this will do is, if you look at it, you should just have, we can use this as a mask, okay, in our shader building, and specify like these areas are going to be metallic. And then I'm doing the same thing here. So I want to texture specific areas. I haven't given them UVs as yet, but I just want the sides to have like one specific texture. So I just took like a keep by normals, and you can like lower the spread, so you can just define like how much should have, what side should have textures. Okay, so I can just do like sides for both of these. So once like both sides the same thing, right? So this is like X positive and this is X negative, and you just do union with existing, so they sort of combine. Okay, and then do the same thing, like give it attribute just float with a value of 1. And then lastly, I wanted a texture here. Okay, so I'm going to make a mask out of that. And then if I want something for the lens mount, so like this area, so I have an attribute for that. So if I look at all of it, like if you look at all of the various attributes that I have on this now, I have the lens mount, I have the plate, the areas which will be metallic, and the sides. And then I also gave it like a rest attribute, which I haven't used as yet, but I wanted to see if we can use that with our triplanar mapping. Okay, so if you look at rest, this is my rest attribute. All right, so that's it. This is the setup. Okay, so I haven't unwrapped anything in this. We will give it UVs, but fairly like generic UVs. Okay, so now I'll just come in here and I'll do a basic setup. So I'll do a LOP network and come in here. Let me just do one thing. Let me give this a name. So I'll do a null and I'll do out drone. And let's come in here. I'll do SOP import. Now I won't use XPU for this. I'll do CPU. Like there's nothing here that XPU doesn't support. But the problem with XPU is that the compilation time for the material, like this is going to be a relatively complex material. So it keeps getting slower and slower. So CPU compiles faster. So what you can do is you can do the shader building at CPU level and then just convert it to XPU in the end. So I'll just pick up the drone and that's it. And then if we look at this, I'll change this to Solaris look dev. And we should, yeah, it switches. Stupid thing. Okay, yeah, there you go. So we have SOP import. Let's just call this drone. And so we have our body and cable and lens. Okay, so we have like the lens and we have the cables and we have the body. Okay, so let's come in here. Firstly, I'll just take a dome light and we'll also take a material and I'll create one material for now. I'll call this drone body and then just assign this. So drone body goes there and the body comes in here. So this is good. And now let's just give it a karma material, sorry, renderer and set this to CPU, which is fine. I also don't want any diffuse bounces. We'll make that 0. And let's render this. So I'll come to karma CPU and there you go. So we have this. I'll pick up a dome light, which should make it look nice. So I'll pick up, I have something interesting. I'll pick up this. Yeah, there you go. So this one looks nice. I'll just, I don't want the background. So we'll just turn that off. I'll set this to dark. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to give it like random colors. Okay. So we can make it slightly procedural in the sense that we can sort of change the patterning, if we want. So the way to do that, we'll have to go back to SOP level. This is actually pretty simple, right? So come in here, like before our null, just take a connectivity node. So just take connectivity and points is fine. We'll set it to class. And if I just visualize this, this is what you'll get. So we have an integer attribute called class. And what I can do is I can use this to do random coloring. Okay, so we come back here to LobNet. And the first thing is come into the material. I'll get rid of that. Actually, I don't even need, I'm not going to do displacement. So, like just forget about it. Okay, so let me turn on CPU. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take a geometry property value. I'll set this to integer and we'll call it class. And then what you do is take a random. So we can take a random color or a random float. Like if I set this to random color and now if I plug this in, you will get this. And we can just change the seed value and get like different colors. And you can do a lot of things here. Like you can define the high and low saturation. You can define, brightness, high and low. But we don't want this, right? So what I want is, I want like a float value. So that then I can put it into a ramp and control it that way. So I'll just pick up random float, which will just give me like, black and white values, which is great. And then plug this into a ramp constant. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll set this to constant values. So I'll just take like constant and constant. And so this I'll keep it to like a white, and then I want like a slightly darker. Let's make this I don't know, let's try like reddish or something. Yeah, pink. And also like a little more white. Okay, so if I plug this in, this is what I should get. There you go. So see, so what I can, so this now, so the nice thing here is if I keep switching this around, I can just define, you know, like what I want. So this is good. Let's make this bright, because this is going to be, make it slightly bluish. I want this area to be metallic. Okay, so everything like, you know, this side, this is all metal, and then this will be plastic. Okay, so this is great. You know, we have our basic setup for this. Now I want to define like some areas to be metallic. So what you can do is I can just take this, I'll put it through a ramp constant, and this will be a float. And what I want is I want all of this to be metal, and like we'll bring this in here and this to not be metal, and just plug that into metalness. And there you go. Now if I start to change this, you'll see like, you know, the metallic areas keep sort of switching. So it gives you like a decent bit of control. Now along with this, the values that the attributes that we had defined, we want like certain areas to always be metallic. So what I can do is I can bring that in. Okay, so let's call this class, and let's bring in another geometry property value. This is the metal, right? So we had done metal, and if I look at it, you should be able to see it. It will be like this. See. So what I can do is I can just add it to this. So I can take an add here and plug this in. And so now what happens is like no matter what, like these areas will be metallic. We can also specify like certain area, like a color for these. So let's say like these areas should always be like, you know, gray. So what I can do is I can take a mix here. This will be background, and I'll pick up a constant, and we'll set this to color. You know, I'll set this to blue and plug that in. So what happens now is oh sorry, wrong order. So this should be background, that should be foreground. See, so now the advantage is like no matter what we do, these areas that I have, right, so these will always remain metallic. So like the plugs over here, no matter how much I change, you know, like this area always remains metallic. So we can do that kind of stuff a lot easier with, you know, just setting up attributes and not having to worry about those things. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Yeah, this is good. I like this. Okay, so that's good. Now let's start taking care of a little bit of texturing. So let's say I just want like some kind of a texture pattern on the sides over here. Okay, so let's do one thing. We'll make something in Cops and just use that as a texture. So I'll turn this off temporarily. Let's come back to our geometry, and I'll create a cop network. We'll call this textures. Let's jump in, and I'll take a simple like tile pattern, and let's just say we'll just pick up something. I don't know what I want, but let's try to do like a star. No, that looks stupid. A triangle. Yeah, I think a triangle should be fine. We can do a triangle, and let's make it into like a header bond. Okay, cool. So let's use this. Okay, can I spin it around? Can I rotate the pattern? Yeah, let's rotate it 180. So it's like upside down. Yeah, okay, that looks nice. So let's just use this. I'll take a null, and we'll call it out triangles. Okay, now the thing is that we have a texture, but we don't have UVs. Okay, so we need to give this some UVs. So what I'll do is I'll just come in here. Let's do it before the rest. So I can just come to this point, and I can just take a simple UV project, right? Plug this in over here, and yeah, that should be good. I'll just take a scale, and I'll just scale it up a little. and I'll change the name. So I'll call it UV1. Okay, because I'll end up having like multiple. So I'll call this UV1. And then we come out here to LopNet. We don't have to worry about where our node, like which node is active, because we're picking up out drone. Like if you look at the drone, see, we're picking up out drone. So it doesn't matter like, where you are specifically. Okay, so I'll change this to Karma CPU again. So now I want to pick up the texture. Okay, so I can just come into the material, and actually I don't even need this. Yeah, just get rid of that. Doesn't matter. So now let's take an image. So material image, and we also want a geometry property value, and this will be a vector 2 and it will be called UV1. And then we'll also pick up like a USD transform. Okay, so just plug this in, and this comes into texture coordinates, and here I'll set this to float. I'll call it op:/obj geometry 1 textures out triangle. Okay, so we have this. Okay, let's bring this up here so I can just do some coloring on this. So I can just take a color. Sorry, we'll take a mix first of all. We'll also have to do some masking in this, right? But first let's just do a simple mix. And again, this will be background. Let's give it some color. So I'll just do like a constant. So we'll set this to color. Let's make this, let's make it like yellow, and plug this in. And then this value comes out there. And if I plug this in, I should be able to see. All right, so for some reason it wasn't working. Like it was showing an error over here. So I deleted the null and I just gave the tile pattern node out triangles. Okay, so I don't know what the error was. Okay, so I can just come in here now. And if I look at this, like the basic texture, this is what I get, which is this. Okay, so I can just take it and, like let's just give it like, let's say 10 by 10. And I set up the mix. So if I bring this in over here, I get this, which is nice. But now what we want to do is, I don't want it like everywhere, right? So firstly, I want to multiply it with the sides value that we had. So which should be useful for us. So we again take a geometry property value and we call it sides, and I can do a multiply. So it will multiply with this. See, so what has happened is like it's only showing up here and it's not showing up on like, the sides, which is good. And then I also want that it should only show up wherever there is red. Okay, so what I can do is I can take, like this is the area where there is red. Okay, so I can take another like a ramp constant. I'll plug this in. This will be float. And what we want is like, we'll have to just like guess this a little bit, so I'll just take this and plug that in and that, and then it comes in here. And this will again multiply here. So just take another multiply, plug this in and multiply that. And what that will do is, see, now you don't have anything on the white areas either. Okay, now we only have that pattern on like the pink areas, and that too like mostly on the sides. Okay, so there you go. So this is how we can, like set up values for this. So we can also like, let's just set this to some color. So we know that this is, let's just call it drone base color. And so the advantage now is that if I come in here and I change the seed value, this will automatically switch. See, so there you go. Now it's showing up over there. So depending on wherever the red shows up is where it will start to show up. So we have like a pretty decent setup for this. Or like if you want to switch it, like maybe we want it in like the white areas, so I can just take this, like the multiply that we have here, and I can just, bring it out to the, see, so now it's showing up in the white areas. I can like squeeze it out a little bit more. Yeah. And then I can maybe change this color to like black. So you can do stuff like this, you know. So you have options, right? Like, so whatever you want to do, you can work accordingly. Okay, now let's say I want like a logo or something, you know, at this point. Okay, so we have a plate attribute, you know, so we have that anyways. But let's just pick up like a logo, but we'll also have to give it UVs first. So let's just come in here and I'll come to this point and I want like UVs over here. Okay, so I can just take another UV project and I can plug this in and let's just, you know, let's take this. I'll set this, I'll call this UV2 and, or let's call it UV for now because it sort of displays UV, and just take this and rotate it and just, you know, place it there and maybe like scale it down. Okay, now I downloaded a texture, so we'll just use that. Okay, so what I can do is I can come in here. Let's set this to CPU. Yeah. And let's also change, let's also change this to some color. Yeah. Okay, like on white it'll show up more easily. Okay, so let's just come out here and we'll again, I'll pick up this as a setup. Control C, Control V. This should be 1, you know. This will be UV2. And what I want to do is I had picked up something. Yeah, I have a skull, you know, PNG that I had picked up. And again, I'll just do like a mix. So we'll take a material mix. And this will be background. I'll again pick up like a constant. And yeah, this is a float, which is good. So I'll take this, plug it here, and that comes in there. Oh, hold on. I don't think I renamed it. Yeah, hold on a second. I know what my mistake is. Yeah, this should be UV2. There you go. Okay. That's why it wasn't showing up. It should show up now. There you go. So I need to do a few things here. Like firstly, you come into this and change this address mode from periodic to clamp. So then it'll only show up, you know, like once. And I also want to maybe like scale it down a bit. Actually, no, we can scale it over there. Okay, so we'll adjust this. And what will also happen is that because it is like a single projection, it will show up, you know, at the back. So which is where our plate attribute will come into play. So I can just take this and, you know, I can just multiply it. So we'll just take another geometry property value and I'll call this plate and I will do a multiply and plug this in. So what should happen is, see, now it's only over there. And so when this feeds in over here, so we won't get anything at the back. See, so there's nothing at the back. And I can just plug that in. See, so the rest of it sort of shows up. We might have to invert this. Let's try to invert the, yeah, there you go. So we invert the skull image. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just come up here to this guy and I can just scale this down. See, so I can just make it smaller. And there you go. So that updates. Okay. So you can do a lot of things like this, you know. So the point being, like, we can texture this whole thing without having to sort of, you know, like unwrap the whole thing. And because these are UVs, even if you sort of move it around, you know, like even if I take this guy and move it around, you won't have any issues, you know, like let me just take a transform node and I'll just, you know, plug in the drone over there. So even if I move it around, I won't have any issues. See, you know, like the textures still sort of remain because they are UVs. We just aren't unwrapping the whole thing, you know, so that makes our life easier. Okay, so let's do one thing. I won't do like the whole thing because there is a lot in there. But I can also like, let's say if you want to texture these guys, you know, the cables. So I can just take this and let me rotate this so I can get some light from the back. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So I'll just make a texture. So I can come in here, come to textures, and I can make something. So yeah, let's again pick up a tile pattern. And can I rotate this? Let's rotate it like 45 degrees. Or no, don't rotate it right now. Rotate tile. Oh, that's not bad. Let's rotate this 45. This is good. I like this. And we can make it slightly smaller. I also want to blur it a little bit. So let's just take a blur and let's just blur it slightly. And what I can do is I can come in here because this part has UV, so we don't have to worry about it. Let's just give it a name. So let's just call it out cable pattern. And yeah, let's come out to the LopNet. And all I have to do is we'll first have to make a new material. So we'll take a material. Yeah, Karma material builder. Let's call it cable shader. Yeah, and we'll assign this. So assign material, and the cable shader goes in there, and the cables come in here. There you go. Okay, and then I can just come in here. So one of the nice things, this is also a good showcase of what you can do with COP. So when you want to create like very simple patterns and stuff and just, you know, you don't have to go hunting for it online. You can just make something in COPS and just, you know, use that. It makes life easier. Okay, so I can just take this and we'll again just pick up, let's do one thing. Let's just come here to the material and I can just pick up this. Let's do like Control C and Control V. And here I'll again do like op colon slash obj geometry textures out cable pattern. Okay, and this will be UV because we didn't like that has basic UVs, like we didn't change it's just one object. We don't need to do like multiple UVs for that. So life is good, and let's just plug this in and see what we get. Yeah, okay, so because this is kept to clamp, it's not repeating. So just change this to periodic and there you go. Okay, so you have like nice, you know, textures on this. We can put this into a ramp and plug that out. So I can just make it like, you know, light gray, dark gray kind of a thing. So it's not like that bright. Actually like almost, yeah, I think that is okay. And then what I can also do is let's just do Control C, Control V, and let's set this to float, and let's plug this into like, let's make it a little bit shiny. So we'll just increase that so it's a little more shiny, and then I can plug this into the roughness. So there you go. So you get like, you know, nice little areas like this. I'll lower this to around like 0.3. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, I think like that's pretty much it. Like, and you can also like, I had already done a lesson on how to use like a triplanar map, but we can use a triplanar to add like a little more texturing to this. Okay, so let's do like one last thing for the robot, for the like the main body, is let's see if we can bring in like a grunge texture for, you know, like just an overlay on top of it. So I can take a triplanar. So I downloaded like one sort of seamless grunge texture, so I'll just use that if I can find it. So I can just take this to Control C, Control V, and if I plug this in here, I should get, there you go. Okay, so we have like a nice seamless sort of grungy texture for the whole thing. What I can also do is, this I haven't tried, but if you want to do tiling and stuff, then you need to modify the position data. But what I can do is like, we have the rest position, right? Let me just see what it's called. So I can come in here, let me check. So it's just called rest. So what I can do is, and this is a vector, it should be a vector. Yeah, okay. So I can come in here, and what I can do is I can just pick up geometry property value. This will be a vector 3 and it will be called rest. And then I can just put it into a multiply and into an add. So the add allows me to move it, the multiply will allow me to tile it. For the tiling, I'll just keep a constant value of 1 for now. So I can just plug that in. And this goes into position. Yeah, it seems to be fine. Okay, like we don't have any issues. The advantage of this should be that if I move it, it should be fine. You know. Yeah, it is sticking, which is good. Yeah, perfect. So what I can do is I can just come in here into my material. And so now if I take the constant value and make it, let's say 3. So this will allow me to see. So there you go. So you get tiling. Like if I make it 10, see, we get tiling. Okay. So I'll keep it to 3. And what I want to do is I want to use this to control like roughness. Okay. So I'll just plug this out. I'll do a remap. And I want this to control roughness. So set this to float because it should be black and white. And I'll just take this, set it to specular roughness. And let me also adjust the dome light to 0. Yeah. And let me do like one thing. For now, I'll just make it slightly metallic. Okay, like let me disconnect this also and just make it metallic. It's just easier to see your roughness properties when you make it metallic. So I can take this. See, there you go. So now you can start seeing like, you know, the roughness values on this. And what I want to do is firstly, I want to like give it more contrast. So there you go. You know, something like that. And then I just want it to be like 0.08 to 0.29, something like this. Yeah, I think this is good. See, so you get like nice little, you know, grungy texture kind of a thing on it. Okay. And then we'll also take another remap, like plug this in. Or actually, like let's just delete this. Let's just, you know, copy this guy and we can multiply it with this. So I'll do a multiply with the main color. So I can just define like how much I want. So what I can do is I can take this and this should be 1 and this should be like 0.8. So you get like a little bit of dirt, but not like a lot. Yeah, get and bring back the, yeah, this is the metal. Right, so let's just bring that back to metal. Because right now everything is metal. Yeah, there you go. See, so you have like, you know, let's keep it to 2. I don't think I need that much. So there you go. So this is, you know, this is pretty much everything that I wanted to do with this. And so whatever changes I make here should automatically sort of, you know, allow me to change or do whatever. Okay. And so like the advantage of this is that if you want like the skull texture to be like, you know, up there, you can just select those many polygons and give those UVs and just, you know, adjust it accordingly. So life becomes, you know, much more easier than, you know, what you were doing before. So yeah, there you go. So overall, it gives you like much more flexibility than what you had before. One of the other things you can also, like, this is just stupid, but I can actually like duplicate my dome light. I can have like 2 of them and just, you know, like adjust the lighting. Yeah, I'll just make one final change, which is I want this to be on the pink areas. I think that was looking nice. Yeah, and let me just adjust the color. I think you should name these things. You know, it'll be easier if you name these things. And now I can, like, once everything is done, I can try changing this to Karma XPU. Hope it doesn't crash or anything. But I can change this to XPU and do a final render. So I can set this to XPU. It'll do a one-time compilation, but it'll be faster. So it'll spend about like 15-20 seconds trying to compile the whole thing, maybe longer. So that's how you can, so even if you have like if you built a robot or something, you don't want to unwrap the whole thing, this is a nice way to just, like put specific textures in specific areas and not have to worry about, like unwrapping the entire object, and it makes your life, a lot easier. So this is how we can texture like relatively complex objects. Okay, that's pretty much it.